Welcome to the podcast series hosted by Help in Crisis 246, where we focus on teaching what you can do in moments of mental or emotional crisis and where you can find help. But the series is not limited to only teaching how to cope in moments of crisis, but we focus on teaching you everyday methods that anyone can use during moments of high stress, difficulties, hurt, panic, anxiety. In other words, how to deal with some of life's most inevitably difficult moments. We do this through interviewing varying experts from different fields who share with us nuggets of wisdom on how we can cope in healthier ways through some of the most common difficulties we all face in life. We also interview those who are somewhere along on their own healing journeys and their journeys towards finding their authentic self as they share from a very vulnerable and open position how they were able to navigate that journey. I'm Michelle Russell. I'm an attorney and a mental health advocate, and I'm very passionate about this area because I had my own healing journey that I've been on for quite some time. And I really just hope that the series can help you navigate your difficult moments and your journey towards a better version of yourself. So if this interests you, be sure to subscribe to our channel, and you can follow us on IG or Facebook at Helping Crisis 246. So those of you who follow the podcast know I love to have persons on who are willing to share their own personal journeys with their own struggles emotionally and mentally, their crisis of self, or how they manage to maneuver the journey toward becoming more authentic versions of themselves. And today I am so happy to have with me Ann-Marie Leach. Hi, Ann-Marie. Thanks for
Hi,
joining
I'm so
us.
happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Anne-Marie is a chef by profession, and she specializes in vegan and plant-based foods. If you don't know her, go and follow. I think it's A Leach Yummy Mummies.
Yes, aleach.yummymummies on IG.
Yes, I'm going to put it up there. She has wonderful plant-based recipes. And not only that, I love that on her page, she will show aspects of her life, not just the good stuff, because social media can be all about, oh, my life is perfect. But I like that there's a level of vulnerability that comes with it, even with her own food, the recipes she tries, the things that were a hit, the things that weren't a hit, exercise, the day she didn't feel like exercising, when she's not meditating, that whole kind of holistic approach to life versus trying to, I think, get this perfect life. So, Anne-Marie, I brought Anne-Marie on because there were two posts from Anne-Marie that had really spoken to me. One that she did about two years ago, maybe three.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
And one that she did earlier this year. And so I want us to go back to 2022 when Anne-Marie had what I would call a kind of moment of crisis of self, where you have to stop and look at yourself and some of the things you're doing and why you're doing it, the underlying reason why you're doing it, why you're pushing yourself, and what, if anything, you're going to do about it. So, Anne-Marie, can you take us back to that time?
Well, I think like that time was really crucial for me because it was a time in my life that I had to kind of redefine what success meant to me. I think after coming out of school and becoming a mom and just trying to like keep up to this standard of being perfect and getting everything done and being super fit, being super attractive for myself, for my husband, being the perfect mom, being a great businesswoman. And it was all this pressure that I put on myself. And basically, as much as I try to promote balance, I don't believe that I was truly following that because nothing that I was doing was just in balance. I was basically saying that I could do this, and that, and workout, and I could do it on, 3 to 5 hours of sleep a night. And then when I had my breakdown, I was like, why? And I started therapy right after, and it was like, well, how could you have been surviving on like 3 to 5 hours of sleep for the last 3 years? You know, um, but I was just doing it, and I was priding myself on getting it done. You know, we bought a house, we did all these things I wanted to get ticked off. I was ticking them off, but I wasn't pouring back into myself and basically doing what I was promoting. That was also the time in my life that I stopped being vegan. Not because there's anything wrong with being vegan. It really worked for me for a period of time, but I feel like it wasn't. But there was so much pressure on still being vegan if I was owning a plant-based business. So all these mental struggles I was going through because I started to pull away and be not interested in being fully vegan anymore, but I was putting too much pressure on myself. No, you're running a plant-based business. You have to be vegan. You have to show up. Even though I did it, I no longer wanted to be. Um, so I just had to sit with myself and realize, girl, like this is not worth it. At the end of the day, when I had kids, my idea of success back then, when I first had my kids, was to make sure that their life was fulfilled. But by me not pouring into myself and being honest with myself, I was pretty much ruining my kid's life, like with my just wild. No, I really was. The example that I was setting wasn't one for them of strength, but strength in terms of knowing that you can be strong and still ask for help. You can be strong and still take time for yourself. Before I was showing them that you just have to go, go, go and sacrifice your own health, which is totally not what I was going for. So yeah, that year was a big year for me, but I think since then I've kind of slowly put the steps in place, and um my girls kind of witnessed a lot of stuff that I'm not necessarily proud of, but I use that as an example to show them, like it's changed behavior. The best apology, I say over and over again, they finish my sentences for me. I say the best apology and they go, change behavior. Exactly. If I say that I'm going to do something to better myself, I'm not going to say sorry. I'm going to show you that I'm sorry. I'm going to show you that I'm pouring into myself. I'm going to show you how to create more balance. So I think, with hard lessons, um, there's a light basically after all the hard lessons you learn. So yeah, that was 2022 going into
But
2023.
can I take you back to that moment? Because this is something people tend to struggle to talk about. And I want people to know they're not alone. What did this breakdown look like? How did it manifest itself?
I remember that week very clearly. I was planning like a girls get together with my friends, and I was managing my business. I think anybody who has a partner would understand that a big part of you, or man, it was just me, but a big part of me is speaking love and life into my partner, being there emotionally for them. That's how I show my love. And I was doing that a lot amongst everything else. I have 3 dogs, I have 2 children, I have a whole house. And yeah, and that week I was like doing all the stuff that I usually do, catering jobs and hosting a tea party at my house. And I just basically woke up and I couldn't move. I just couldn't move. A lot of crying, a lot of screaming, a lot of messaging my friends and being like, I just can't be there. And everyone was like, whoa, what's kind of going on? And I was like, I just need to stop. I just need to stop. Like I literally need to stop. Um, yeah, and my kids were really scared because they've never seen me so upset or so vulnerable. But it was almost like in a moment, everything just became too much. The pressure of everything, trying to hold everything together, um, it just became too much. And I literally, I canceled work that entire week. I had never taken an off day from my meal prep service since it started. Besides the holidays that everybody has, so like Easter holiday, Christmas. Besides that, I worked right through for 8 years, not taking any days off for myself. That's wild when I think back on how much I was pushing myself. And then, my mom was like, you need to slow down. I was like, no, I'm fine. I would have these moments of like, I don't know, you say anything to me. Oh, well, when's the last time you did your hair? And I would have a complete breakdown. What's wrong with my hair? My hair is fine. My mom would be like, you need to chill. Like, are you resting? I'm fine. And it would be like, and so I always thought to myself, everybody has these little moments of like pause or a little freak out. But once I came back, I was like, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. So I would have these little moments where I lost my temper, but it would never be extreme. But that week, it was extreme. It was like, whoa, it's not like a little meltdown and you move on. It was like everybody paused. And then that's when I told myself, and I was thinking to my husband about it, and I was like, I really think that I need some therapy to kind of just like be there for myself and learn the right tools on how to deal with like my people pleasing and always wanting to say yes. And that was me all the time. I'm gonna bend over backwards. I'm gonna find a way because mentally I know I can do it. And this feeling of exhaustion will pass. And then the feeling of getting it done under the pressure, which would give me my dopamine fit, would carry me through to the next one. So I would always tell myself, you may be tired now, but that's okay. You're gonna get over that. Let's just get it done. And that week I told my husband, I was like, no, I have to go for therapy. Like, there's no way I can continue this. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely sure because this is a cycle. I saw my mom put everybody before her, and we carry on in these ways, and we don't even realize there's something wrong with it, you know. And I think that our partners, depending on the kind of you know home environment they come from, they almost kind of expect it as well, especially in a Caribbean household. The moms do the most, they hold the most. I'm no longer interested in doing the most if it's sacrificing myself. Um, yeah, I no longer think it's a good example for how I want my kids to, you know, grow up and create homes for themselves. I remember, and a lot of people do it. I remember a lot of my friends and stuff pride themselves on like being able to like manage the entire household by themselves in terms of cleaning and all that. And I was trying to keep up and not getting help. If you can't get help, fair enough. If you can get help. I can't believe I was trying to maintain a complete home with two massive dogs. I have to force it outside, run a business, be there for my husband, be a mom, take care of myself. Yeah, so that was it for me. I sought out therapy and I never looked back. It was really, really great.
Funny enough, as I listen to you, what comes to mind is this whole female conditioning, and I'm looking at it from two angles: the cultural angle of the female conditioning, and then something Dr. Gabor Mack has said about women. And the first part is the conditioning. So that while I listened to you say you were trying to do it all and keep going, I literally said to myself, because that's how we're raised as women, we're
Yeah,
supposed to be able to handle it all and keep it together. And I said to myself, I've never heard a man trying to do it all. A man chooses a task and that's it. So whether it's his career and he's going to pour all of himself into the career and everything else falls by the wayside. Those who choose to pour into their children and their families, they pour into that and everything else falls by the wayside. But they're never trying to be a great friend, a great parent, a great businessman, a great cleaner and caretaker, looking after their friend. They're not trying all. They're there.
they're not attempting to do it. It's not a
They're
thought.
not. They
Yeah,
and part of it almost seems like they don't even think about it. Like it's kind of like you ever
they
had a time
don't.
where you say to your partner, you're like, wait, when last you saw Ricky? Like, you're not hanging out with your friends, and they're like, yeah, we good. I'll see him
Yeah.
when I see him. Whereas we're like, oh my God, I'm being such a bad friend. I haven't been with my girls in a while. Oh, we put this pressure on
Well, it's the
ourselves.
pressure. It's the pressure. Like, it was so funny. I was watching something and it was like a woman lays down at night and everything goes through her brain. Like, what did I do? Was I a bully to my children? And that's why I had so much guilt because I was working and I was making the money, but I was so snappy. Every question that was asked, it was a short answer, it was a snap, and it was like, and that's not the memories I want to create for my kids. And then I had a lot of like, to be honest, I had a lot of guilt about not being able to work like my husband did in terms of getting the recognition for my work. I think I wouldn't have admitted it before. I would always been like, oh, that's not really a competition. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, I'm a good chef. I went to school just like him. We're similar. We have the same education, all these things. And I'm like, but I can't get anything for myself in terms of recognition for what I did, what I'm capable of. And I was making money more than him at one point in time. But all the pressure of being all this stuff, and then I realized I sat back and I realized and I told myself I was like, but he was able to travel, do competitions, do all this stuff because I was holding down the fort.
There, there.
I was raising our children, right? And I think as I said, I just really had to sit with myself because I had all this pressure on me. Why aren't I this? Why aren't I that? And I was doing all this stuff I was doing it to myself. It was like no one asked me to do it. It was also like no one asked me to do it. Why am I trying to prove myself? Why am I not happy and satisfied with who I am without all these things attached to my name? Anyway, so it's a lot of work. I realized, to be quite honest, the women in my life who weren't supporting me, who were putting pressure on me to be all of this, whether they realized it or not,
Yes.
um, who were comparing me to other people. Um, and I had to let go of some people in my life, not because they're not great people in other aspects, but it's just no longer, it wasn't the life that I wanted for myself anymore. I am very content and happy with catering and business and whatnot. But my family comes first. My health comes first.
Yes.
And I'm okay with that now. I wasn't always okay with that, but I'm like, okay, I don't need to make as much money as my husband. It's fine. I am fulfilled in other ways. Yeah, and I think that 2022 brought me to that. Thank God I came through it okay. But 2022 brought that, and it is so funny that when I started to let go of all these expectations I put on myself, everything kind of fell into place. I didn't want to let go of my meal prep aspect of my business because that brought in that was like what I totally depended on for so long. And I literally one day I was coming back from a family trip and I said, let God, let God handle it. Like I said, God, I don't want to be doing this next year at this time. I no longer, this does not serve me. I don't want to do it. Please put in my way, please show me how, and just allow me to trust and like literally just let it go. And I did that. I continued to work, whatever came up, I worked until then. But then one day was like, I just realized as I was going through my calendar, I had racked up like 2 catering jobs every month. And I was like, what? So I don't have to depend on the meal prep anymore. Wow. Thank you, God. It literally just happened. As soon as I let go and stopped putting all this pressure on myself and trusted that what was for me would be for me, and it hasn't changed since. Every
You know,
time
there,
yeah,
go ahead.
it's so funny. Every time that I really just surrender and say, it's in your hands. I'm a hard worker. You know that what you give me, I'm gonna make something out of it for sure. But I'm not putting that pressure on myself to keep up with appearances, keep up with this, that. I'm just doing me. Everything is lined up for me. And it's crazy because it felt like overnight, but it wasn't overnight. It was a process I had to go through and to really just trust and really believe that I'm not gonna miss anything. Even if it's delayed, it's coming. When I look at that bank account and it's looking it's looking close to zero, I'm not stressed because it's coming. And it really just pops up. It really, really does. So I think and anything what I learned of that is just have faith. Know that really what is for you will come to you, but you have to have faith. The faith is what is, I think, the determining factor to know that it's going to be okay, even though what around you doesn't look necessarily okay, it's gonna be okay. And to put some hard work behind whatever you want. Yeah, for
So
sure.
there are two things I'd like to add to that. So I go back
Yeah.
to what I was saying about Dr. Dabormat. He has this video, and he's a doctor, and he focuses on trauma and the brain and how we respond to trauma in very subconscious and unconscious ways, and how it plays out in our everyday life and can be self-destructive. Coming from conditioning, like you said, the indirect conditioning of mom did everything, moms are supposed to do everything. You grew up and you started doing it, even if you didn't make a conscious decision to do it. Yeah. And one of the things he said is that the studies do show that women have more autoimmune diseases, which are stress-related illnesses. Women have more incidence of high blood pressure and diabetes. And he said it's a cultural issue because women eventually went into the world of work. And despite the fact that they did that, their responsibility for the home did not decrease. Their responsibility for the children did not decrease. So they took on this whole new load of breadwinner, and the man remained steadfast in his one role, and the woman now had three. And so he essentially says, no wonder women have more stress-related diseases
100%.
Because culturally there's not been enough of a shift where there's more of a balancing out.
Exactly. And a lot of pressure, I believe, well, in my experience, comes from women. It comes from women on women. A lot of times the men don't even, the men may expect it 100%, but in my experience, they don't demand it. It was never demanded of me from my husband. I think low key was expected, but it was never demanded. But he grew up seeing his mom put herself last, and every other woman put themselves last. So it was normal. And then me wanting, I think, subconsciously trying to impress and please, I was doing it too. That's what you were supposed to do. And it's just this unhealthy cycle. And there was this quote that I read. It was like, we're expected to mother like we have no job and work like we have no family. It's like something like that to that effect. And how is that even realistic? And I think
funny enough, that's what the Bormat says. He actually talks about the danger of not saying no and the danger of putting yourself last, which is a theme I hear you saying a lot, where women, we tend to be conditioned that love means the ultimate self-sacrifice. Your
Exactly.
need must come last. And if you put
Exactly.
yourself anywhere but last, you're selfish, you're
Yep.
not a good mom,
Yep.
you're not a good woman, all of these things that are culturally taught, more likely, but I won't go here, but more likely from the patriarchal conditioning and
I
society.
think I agree with you 100%. It is from patriarchal part of society, and it is. And as I said, so even though it was never demanded of me, I think it was low key expected because that's what was seen in every Caribbean household from even from me. I remember my mother was always she was very much a caregiver. She will do a lot for you, but when she realized that she's being taken advantage, it's done. Like it's done. It's so hot and cold. So like she would be like so when she saw me putting myself last constantly, she'd be like, Caribbean mothers are rough. You want to slap? What's wrong with you? Yes, you do for your family, but have you ever seen me putting myself last? Have you ever seen me? But I saw her do so much, and I think that my personality is just different. Where I'm like softer, or as I was, I had to learn to say no. I had to learn to speak my mind in the moment when I felt this way because what I was doing was I was feeling away and just putting it away. And then I was festering all these emotions, and then you would get a big old burst. Instead of me just being honest in the moment, I'm not interested in this. I can no longer do this, or I can do this, but after I do this for myself first. And let me tell you, it is hard. It is so hard to say no. It's so hard because I've been doing that from the time I could speak. Everything was sure, yeah. And as you said before, I prided myself on putting myself last. That was the way that I was the best. So I had to let go of a lot of things. I had to let go of a lot of
And
things,
I'm
and
hearing a lot. Everything
yeah,
came out of first the self awareness, the
yeah,
self honesty,
yeah,
and then making a decision to change. And the self awareness was your ability to look during that week and say, I know I do have outbursts, but this week I'm off the chart. The
yes,
second thing was
exactly,
the self honesty, where you were actually able to say, I can't get out of this bed. I can't stick to the commitments this week. I can't do it. Your body
yeah.
said no. Your body was done. Your body
My
said,
body said no.
nope,
My body
I'm
said
done.
no. I remember actually, I got off the bed, sorry, and I went onto the floor. And my dog came to me and she laid down on me, and it was like, sorry, he laid down on me, and I just can't. And I'm somebody who prides myself on can, even when I don't want to, and I can't. So there has to be a shift. There has to be a change. And then I use the shame of my past behavior as fuel to not make those bad decisions again. I used it in the sense I told my children, this is what I did, but this is not what I'm going to do. And this is what I expect from you. And you can see this example in me. I'm changing my behavior. And I think that we all can all work on being better versions of ourselves. And I think that is what has kept me going. Whereas before, I wanted to be like the perfect mom. You know, I always very self critical. So I learned to, it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay for your kids not to see you perfect, is what I learned a lot of as well. You don't have to be ashamed of not being perfect in front of your kids. You want to be honest with your kids and allow them to know that we're all humans, we make mistakes. That's not something that I saw growing up. My mother was the perfect example, and nothing against that and her. She was able to do it. Well, she would tell me, "But Anne-Marie, I'm not perfect," and I'm like, "Well, I know you're not, but growing up, you were always a great example." So I felt guilty, and all these. You realize when you sit down and start to unpack, you realize where all this is coming from, And she was like, "But why are you so like, upset with me?" And I was like, "I guess because you're so perfect." And I feel like I fall short in so many things. And she's like, but you work so hard. She would say, well, I never had a job outside, like I was never an entrepreneur. I never worked for myself. That's a completely different type of work. I don't understand how you do it. So when she kind of started to point out certain things to me, then I'm like, okay, I guess it's different. And I started to be easier on myself. I started to extend grace to myself. And I
Good.
started to just, live through the example in a different way to how she did it. But because she was to me perfect. She never, I mean, my mom and I went through divorce. My mother never spoke a bad word about my father. She never said anything negative about him, which I am today still in awe of. Because how could you be going through something so personal and just move on through being,
But you realize the contrast because what I like is that you've taken that lesson and you've gathered the good things from it, the things that work for you, and then you've been creating a new model for your girls because you're showing them brokenness, you're showing them vulnerability, you're talking to
Yes.
them about feeling negative emotions and even succumbing to those, and then how you
Yep.
can move forward after, because you're teaching your children emotional regulation. You're teaching them not to be ashamed of the negative
Oh, you're
emotions
making
and
it
not to be
scary.
ashamed of not being perfect, and to be able to admit the
Yeah.
imperfections. And so that, I think that's where the generation before us and the generations before then went wrong, that the women
Yeah.
were so bent on being examples and strong and perfect that they didn't teach us how to be vulnerable, and we're not very good with dealing with the negative emotions, so we shove them on there, we keep moving, and so
Yeah.
snapping and being irritable has become the norm. We expect mothers and women to nag, we expect them to snap and be irritable, and that's because we never learned how to communicate our needs in the moment.
Exactly. Exactly. The communicating our needs. Instead of being upset because the dishes are full, I'm allocating that on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. One person does them on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The other person does them. And, like I'm communicating how things should be done or how I would like things done instead of washing the dishes and quarreling over a sink of dishes and
Yes.
expecting someone to understand how I feel. No. Also, just because I'm empathetic and I don't have to be asked and I can see, people aren't like you. I think one of the
Yes.
biggest things that we all learn is we have to stop trying to change people, period. And it goes across friendships, relationships. Stop trying to change people. No one's changing for you. Any change that you want is because you want to change. And you can't expect people to be anything other than themselves, right? You have to see it. You have to be strong enough to know that if it's for you or if it's not. And if it's not for you, you got to be strong enough to move forward. That's it. The only change I've ever had in my relationship with my kids, my friends, whatever, is when I change. I changed the things about me that I wanted to, and they changed after by the just because I was setting boundaries. So I saw the change in them by the boundaries that I set with myself. And I think that's if you want to grow in a relationship, then you adjust, right? But if you are setting boundaries to suit yourself and you're making the changes and the people in your life don't want to adjust, then they aren't people that's supposed to be in your life. And you have to be okay with that as well. That's a very important thing. You have to just move on. And it's not perfect every day. I slip back into trying to be perfect sometimes as well. But I think majority of the time, I'm very okay with not being. But it's a habit. So slowly, slowly, I'm making slow changes. Um, yeah, every day, every month, every year. So yeah,
So let's
that's kind
come forward to this year.
of
And earlier this year, you had a motor vehicle accident. Can you
well,
tell
sorry,
us
it was
about
late last year. It was in
late last
October.
year?
Yeah,
Sorry, late last
late last
year. Can you tell us about that?
ah. So late last year was epic for me. As I told you, I kind of let go of certain things, and the year before previously, and I came back from a trip, and as I said, I was like, I no longer want to do this aspect of my business. I want to become a folk caterer. God help me, show me, guide me. That's what I'm doing. And then all the jobs started coming in. So I was like, this is a blessing. Thank you, God. This is a blessing. Everything I've asked for, you have provided for me. I have not lost any business. I'm making my money. Thank you, God. I'm going to ride this wave. Forgetting that I'm not a robot and I need rest.
Yes.
That's it. And that week, the week of the accident, I was a very spiritual person. I was having a lot of strange dreams, and I don't really dream. And one of the dreams I was having this week was with my grandmother. And I woke up from the dream crying, just profusely crying. Like I held my husband's hands, and he was like, "What is wrong with you?" I was like, "I just don't know. I just having a dream with my grandmother, and she was holding her hand here, and I walked in, and she was rubbing her hand, and I was like, "Grandma," I was like, "You're alive?" And she wouldn't answer me, but she was rubbing her hand. And I woke up and I was crying, and I was like, "That is so weird." Okay, whatever. That's so weird. I told my mom about it. She's like, "That's strange." Okay, whatever. Moving on. That week was jam packed with work. I had so much work, and then I was traveling our yearly vacation, our annual vacation. I think 2 weeks after that. So I was like, okay, well, you're going away. You want money to spend. Like, come on, hello. So I was like working towards like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do all these jobs, and that means I really have a nice, comfortable vacation. I don't have to be watching my money in terms of this and that. Thank you, God, these are blessings. And there was this job that wasn't confirmed yet, And I knew that confirming it would be a bit tight on me because I don't really work. I don't work with anybody. All my work is on my own. I'm the only person in my business. Yeah, I may contract people from time to time if I have a really huge job. The majority of conduit bets that I do that cater between 1,000 and 3,000 people, I'm doing on my own because I'm pretty good at planning, right? And I can put things in place. So I can do it. Well, I can do it, right? But I'm not accustomed asking for help. Anyway, this week happened. I took on this last minute job that kind of just put me over the edge. So in terms I wasn't getting the adequate sleep that I needed. And that's me being honest. And a lot of people were like, oh, how can you like be so honest and say that you fell asleep at the wheel? I did.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's also because I wasn't prioritizing my sleep. Now, if I had got contract workers for that week, I could have managed getting all the work done and I would have slept. And I would have been burning the candle at both ends? I may not have fallen asleep at the wheel. But
Yeah.
I was just going on a pure adrenaline. Accident. Pure adrenaline. It was definitely the scariest thing I've ever been through. I fell asleep. I blacked out, but I fell asleep. And when I opened my eyes, I just saw the car hit me. So I opened my eyes like a second before the vehicle hit me. So all I saw was the vehicle hit me. Or me hit the vehicle, whichever way you want to put it. I was on the wrong side of the road. So I definitely hit her. I swerved over to her side. She hit me. And I woke up just before I see impact and I got out of the vehicle. And when I opened my eyes, I was like, what? I was like, oh my God, I'm alive, I'm alive. And then I was like, let me try to get out of the car. I was able to get out of the seatbelt and I just was like, I need to get out of the car to see if I can help these people. And like I looked up at my arm and I had scrapes right here, right down my arm, just where my grandmother was rubbing in the dream. And I was like, that is so wild to me because I've always heard about these stories of people come to you and and da 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 da. And I never really believed it. I really did it. And it was almost like my mom's like, she's trying to warn you. If nothing else, girl, get your 8 hours when the night comes.
Yes.
Get your 8 hours. And if something comes up and you can't get a full 8 hours, don't do it 4 nights in a row. Don't do it 4 nights in a row and pretend that you're okay and it's gonna be okay because ultimately someone else suffers.
Yes.
Because of it. And that's why it's so important. Like, we don't have to have all these material things to make life okay. All the money that I was chasing to take on vacation, I had to spend on getting a new car. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I'm not saying not to work. I'm not saying not to use your money. I'm not saying not to invest and save your money. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you have to create a balance and find what that means to you because to everybody, their definition of success is different. But I'm telling you, success is not money. It can never be.
I think you need to say that again. I think you need to say that again.
Success is not money. It's not. And I think I know a lot of people pride themselves on having money because they have nothing else within. They don't feel worthy unless it's attached to something material. And I've never been that girl. But then as I grew up and you get influenced by different things and you start to lose a part of who you are a little bit. And I'm not saying yes, you need money to live and enjoy certain things, but it cannot be what's pushing you. And even though I always say that, I always say, chase passion, not paper. I say that all the time, but I don't think I was following through in every aspect, you know? And it was a reminder to girl, chill, stop putting everything else first besides your health. And trust that everything will be okay and everything will happen in its time. Yeah, man. So we gotta stop thinking that money equals success. We have to prioritize our family. That's what I learned. And really look out for our mental and physical health. Like sleep is literally one of the most important things you can do for your body. People don't talk about people kind of like, oh, my granny say sleep when you're dead.
Lots of people still say that. Lots and lots of people, which is an unhealthy, toxic work culture that says you must just keep going at all costs. But the reality is, and that's why there's a book by Bessel van der Kolk that I talk about all the time. It's called The Body Keeps Score. And more often than not,
I'm reading that book.
It's excellent.
I'm reading that book. Yeah.
And even when we want to go around ignoring our emotions and our mind, our body is always the first clue that everything is not okay. And you know what I'm
Exactly.
hearing as a theme from what you've shared is that your body was always your first clue to the fact that you weren't doing things right. Your body was your first clue to you being out of balance. Your body was always the thing that brought you back to center, because whenever you
Yep.
didn't listen, it shut down for you. And
It shut down.
fortunately, you had enough self awareness to step back and go, okay, how did I get here? What do I need to do differently? Because you know, there are some people who get better and just go right back to the same cycle that caused the
Yeah.
destruction in the first place.
A
And
hundred
so
percent.
it is important that we start to pay attention to the little clues. You know, you said you were going on adrenaline and you'd wind down, you would have the AC on and the music. The fact
I
that you
mean,
needed to do that was saying your body is exhausted and you have to
yeah,
push. But we like to ignore these things and say, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. When the
yeah,
body is saying, please don't. And you know, I recently did a video because I was chastising my own self. When I heard myself doing that whole just push a little longer, and my body was really sick. And I said, I need to stop treating my body as something to be abused and something instead as something to be nurtured. Because that's what we do.
and
We
love.
abuse our bodies. We push it beyond its limits and then get annoyed when it breaks down and impatient when it's taking too long to get better. And we don't
Exactly.
nurture it. We don't feed it the right things. We don't give it the rest, the exercise, the fun. We don't give our body what it needs. And then we get upset when we don't perform the way we think we should. But it still comes
Exactly.
back to that thing you said, it's self awareness and surrender. I love how much of your stories about
Yeah.
surrendering to the universe, to God, and trusting that what is for you will be for you. It's what you kept saying, you know,
But
you
it's
mightn't
true.
have it
Yeah.
now. Trust it, you'll experience it when you're supposed to. Trust it will be yours along the way.
Exactly. No, yeah, it's the faith that keeps me through 100%. I know that was for me. Nothing has whether you believe in God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, you know that there's something bigger than you. You have to have the faith that this life is for you. We have everything in this life to carry us through and for us to thrive in it. But a lot of times we act like if we have to fight through. No, that isn't the idea. I think we have to really accept that what is for us, we will get. I don't fight over anything. People always say like, other businesses pop up with a similar model to mine, and I always try to go out of my way to be sharing, caring, incorporate. Like, I'm traveling this year, so I can't do this business, so I pass it on to other two vegan chefs that I know that will be great. Like, oh, how you can do that? They're going to take away our business. You, it's not mine. I can't force people to spend their money with me. If I'm happening to be traveling at this point in time, this is not for me. Then it's for somebody else.
Yes,
And I'm very happy with allowing there's enough for all of us. Nothing
there's
belongs to me.
abundance.
There's
Yes,
abundance. And I'm not trying to grab anything. I'm not trying to keep clients. That's not my vibe.
very,
That's not my
very
vibe.
good.
It doesn't serve me. Yeah, man, this is a journey. I'm literally just trying to be as authentic and keep my promises to myself. I'm just trying to keep my promises to myself every single day. So this is where I'm at.
Well, I am so
So
grateful that you took the time to share some of that with us. I promised I wouldn't keep you for more than an hour because I know you have a busy day. And
yeah,
I love the lessons. I love how you address the mom guilt. I love how you address even the slight jealousy with your husband and how you navigated that. I love how
yeah,
vulnerably you shared about, you know, your own mental breakdown and the lessons from it, and how you're teaching your daughters to be different, and how we're creating new models for ourselves and the generations in front of us, and how
thank
perfection
you.
is not the goal. Money, while good, is not the goal. It's
Not the
living
goal.
a life that we're proud of, living a life where our body, our minds, our children, our partners thrive, living a life that we could just rest in, surrender in,
Yeah,
and be happy with. You know, I am so grateful to you, Anne-Marie. Thank you for sharing.
I'm happy to be here. Honestly, thank you for reaching out. I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story with you.